To borrow a phrase, is Nosferatu deep or dumb? Robert Eggers is one of those directors that's got me like, I liked The Lighthouse. It rode a fine line between haunting and silly, as a lot of the best horrors do. But it's most memorable to me for leaving me on a feeling of like, okay. With Nosferatu, I think the line is between horror and, lacking a better word, edginess. Depressed and lonely, a young 19th century woman's plead for company is answered by a blood-sucking monster, the Nosferatu. The tryst ruined her life, and for no fault of her own, the lives of many people around her. If you're familiar with any adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, this is basically that, with a few twists. And yes, the old Nosferatu film as well. I'm prepared to say I liked the film, but the ending leaves a nasty taste on the palate, but not in a actionable or interesting way, just kind of a, oh, wasn't that f***ed up? And why I find that a little bit disappointing is that the early tension is incredible. Every inch of Germany seems steeped in cold and anxiety. With simple techniques like long pans and push-ins, Eggers creates nightmare logic that corrupts the world and keeps you unsettled. Even when his shadow is far away, Count Orlok bends the world around him. He seems to be in every corridor of his crumbling castle, and the camera fears to look at him. In the unsettling language of the film, his possessiveness, his authority, will, and yes, iconically, his shadow are all consuming. If a studio gets crazy enough to take a crack at a From Software adaptation, Eggers might be the guy. He knows how to tap into that pervasive despair and madness. But after Nicholas Holt's romp at Wacky Drackies, the spell starts to fade. This does coincide with Orlok taking more of the spotlight instead of haunting the edges, so he subsequently loses some menace. But it is more that I realize there's not much to this story, it's just a macabre tale. The issue for me might be that I don't see the sensuality that others have reported. The character dynamics are sexual, but there's no appeal in the darkness to succumb to. It's never tempting. Thus, erotic turns to edgy, especially with the ending. I'm not saying there aren't interesting characters, and there are loads of great sequences, but I don't think it ever coalesces into something more than the sum of its parts. And that's fine, but the enchantment of the early sequences crafted the shadow of something greater. In the light of hindsight, Eggers employed expert visual artistry in the service of something that just ain't that deep.